So hey guys, it's Stephanie, and today I'm gonna do the Olympic book tag. I was tagged by Liz over at Mountain City Books. I will link her channel down below. And if you haven't checked out her channel, please do so. She is a newer booktuber and she has very similar taste to the stuff that I read. So if you watch my channel and you enjoy what I read, you will definitely enjoy her. I love her channel, so please, please, please go check her out. I beg you. Okay, now with that said, this tag was created by RJ over at The Secret Stack. It's a really good one and I'm really excited to answer these. Okay, question number 1. Opening ceremony. What book did you think had an incredible opening? I feel like this is kind of lame because I'm just gonna pick like my favorite book ever. And for those of you who have watched this channel for a while, I think it's no shocker. That's right, 100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. First line. Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. I just really like it. I feel like it makes me want to keep reading to learn more about this man. I think it kind of establishes a general time period. I mean, by reading that, I think you realize it doesn't take place in present day. It's not, this is just, it's such a great book, and I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by it. I will say, don't be. I read this in high school. Granted, I didn't really read it from an analytical point of view. I read it for the magical realism and the story and this family, and I probably missed a lot of the bigger things, the connections between like Macondo and Colombia and deeper things like that. So this is due for a reread soon with those things in mind. But I'm going to say, do not be scared of this book. This book is just amazing and the writing is beautiful. Anyway, with that commercial out of the way, let's move on to number 2. The games. What is your favorite fictional competition? This was a really hard one. I could not think of a whole lot that were not YA basically, so I just went to YA and said probably The Hunger Games. I don't own the first one, so this is Catching Fire. The second one in the series. And yeah, the idea of kids competing with each other to the death is pretty awesome. Speaking of Battle Royale, I know came out before The Hunger Games, but I haven't read it yet, but it is on my TBR. So I do want to read Battle Royale, which, if you don't know, is also kids battling to the death, and there's some controversy. But yeah, like the whole premise of it, I find it really interesting, and like I said, I had a really tough time coming up with fictional competitions. So yeah, The Hunger Games. Okay, question 3. The original. The modern games are based on the original Greek competition. What is your favorite book based on a classic? This was also difficult because I don't read a whole lot of retellings, but I did finish one this year. And that was earlier this year. I read Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld, and that was a modern day retelling of Pride and Prejudice. I thought it did a great job. I really enjoyed it. It was such a fun read. I don't usually read like new adult romance, just given the circumstances of it being a Pride and Prejudice retelling. My interest was really piqued though, and I'm really glad I made an exception and read it because it was just so fun. In this one, Mr. Bingley was basically like the last bachelor, but in that universe, like, Bachelor is called Eligible, and he didn't pick either of the 2 final contestants. He and Mr. Darcy are doctors, and it all takes place in Cincinnati, and it is just such an awesome book. I really think she did a great job really transferring that plot to modern day. It was just so good. 4. The Eternal Flame. What is one ship that you won't let die, even after the books made it clear it was never going to happen? I'm gonna have to go with the first ship that I ever had. The first ship. The good ship, Little Women. How could you do this to me, Louisa May Alcott? How could you do this to me? Joe and Laurie were supposed to be together. They were supposed to be together. And I don't want to hear about all your reasons about how they were too similar, blah, 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 not compatible. We all know. We all know. So yes. This was definitely like the first time I remember just like reading a book and being mad at it and thinking that the character didn't end up with the right person. Gymnastics. What's a book that had so many twists and turns it left your head spinning? In a good way. I'm gonna have to say Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, only because like you read the whole book, vaguely spoilery. Like you're reading this book and it's getting closer to the ending and they've caught the killer, there's a motive, blah, blah, blah. And then the last 2 chapters turn that all on its head. And I just like, what? So like I didn't see it coming. I thought it was great. Personally, I love Gillian Flynn. Number 6, The Controversial Judge. What's a book that you have a totally different opinion on than most people? I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm gonna have to say Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, only because I know this is a book that is on people's like top 5, some people's just like all-time favorite books, and I get it. It's poignant and well written. It's not like Jonathan Safran Foer is like a bad writer. I just was not a fan of it. Oscar was obnoxious and annoying, and it was just too, I guess I want to say, pretentious. Didn't like it. It wasn't for me. And super unpopular opinion, I really enjoyed like the grandparents story more than Oscar's little scavenger hunt. Beach volleyball. What is your favorite fictional duo? For this, I'm gonna have to go with Tana French's Into the Woods and the partners Cassie and Adam. I just thought they had really good chemistry. Like books are very usually quick to say like, this character is really funny, but then that character never does or says anything that's actually funny or clever. I felt like Cassie and Adam actually had genuine like funny banter back and forth. I thought they had a really good chemistry. I might have also shipped them really hard, but anyway, we won't talk about that. I just really liked them as partners. I thought they went really well. I just really liked reading them together. And I was happy with the way it was written because the first book is about Adam, and then the second book in this series, The Likeness, is about Cassie. And I felt like we got to know her really well in the first one, so I felt like I was already really familiar with her when I picked up The Likeness, which I thought was a good thing. Number 8, weightlifting. What is the most massive book on your shelf? I haven't read this yet, but I recently picked it up. And this is The Art of Fielding by Chad Harbach. And if you've read this, you're thinking that it's probably not that big. But this dummy here picked up a freaking large print version. So yeah, look at that print. That looks like I'm reading the Babysitter's Club here. It's absolutely gigantic. So yeah, I didn't see that like very tiny sign there that says large print in like the same color as the background. So sue me here. I mean, I guess I could have looked at that, but I didn't see it. So yeah, now I own a very gigantic large print copy of The Art of Fielding. Yay me. Okay, question 9. Tell us your favorite Olympic sport. I'm gonna be lame and say swimming, not because America dominated, but because like I was on the swim team in high school, so like I connect more with that sport because I'm like, oh, like that was my event. I remember doing that. So yeah, swimming. Also, it's really fun to watch synchronized swimming, but I would say swimming is like my favorite. Okay, what is a book that you just tore through with record speed? I'm gonna do another Gillian Flynn and say Gone Girl. I was just going through, at the time when I picked up Gone Girl, I was in like a major reading slump, and Gone Girl is just such a fast-paced thriller that it just took me right out of that. I feel like I bought it on my Kindle on like a Sunday night, and then the next day I had to go to work, and I downloaded the Kindle app on my phone, and I was in my cubicle like reading this book basically as fast as I possibly could because I just had to know what was going to happen. I was just constantly on the lookout for like my boss or like a supervisor and just reading this book at work. I think I read the whole thing in like less than 24 hours, and that was probably like the last time I've done that. 10. Synchronized swimming. What is a book series that you kept reading even though you didn't have any idea why? So in my bookish turnoffs video, I talk about how I don't like YA, and you have to understand that I went through a time where I really tried YA and I felt like I gave it a really fair chance, and I picked up a lot of different books, and one of those books is one that is rated very highly, that a lot of people like. I don't understand why. That is Kiera Cass's The Selection. It was just bloody awful. I hated it, and I feel like people say like, oh, like once you get through one, the ridiculous premise, and two, the god-awful names that the characters have, like then you can enjoy it. Just once you like forget about the plot or anything like that, you know, it's enjoyable. No, it was just terrible. The world building was just not well thought out. The story was bleh. I could not with it. Just no. That book has like a 4 point something rating. You know what? To each his own. I don't know why I finished it. Okay, number 11, The Tortured Fan. What fictional family, group, nation, organization do you irrationally root for no matter how many times they break your heart? This one was really difficult, and I actually couldn't think of one. I have like 2 answers. One is a character, and I'm probably taking this like a different way. But Agnes Magnusdóttir from Burial Rites, just because you get so close to her, and I feel like you learn really like her story and who she is. But at the beginning of the book, they make it very clear that she's going to die. Like, there's going to be no miraculous intervention to, like, help this woman who is sentenced to die. Like, she is going to die. And it's just, it is heartbreaking because you're like, no, like, someone do something. You know, you just get really close to her, and it was such a great book. 2, I'm going to do some Harry Potter here and say Slytherin House. 1, because I am a Slytherin, and I feel like we're treated unfairly, and we are just like slapped on with like an evil label, and it's a little unfair and wrong, not to mention, and I actually have not read the last book. But in the last movie, Professor McGonagall sends all of Slytherin House down to the dungeons during the Battle of Hogwarts, which I think is so wrong, and I'm still very angry about that. Closing ceremony. 12. Closing ceremony. What book had an ending that just blew your mind? I'm gonna go with George Orwell's 1984. This book has a very famous last line, but if you haven't read it, if somehow you didn't have to read this in school or you haven't gone around to this, I really, really recommend it. But yeah, the last line in this book is very, very famous and very like, whoa. And I just remember reading it and thinking like, what? So read it. And if you've read it, like, you know the closing line. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!